Let's just say July was a big Blu-ray month. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. It's been a little while since I last did a haul video, so I wanted to share with you some of the Blu-rays I picked up in the last month or so. I usually don't get enough each month to warrant regular haul videos, but there were quite a few sales recently, so I picked up a lot more than I usually do this time of year. In fact, I'm going to split this haul up into 3 videos. This first video is going to be made up of a mix of standard Blu-rays, so just regular releases and not boutique labels. The second video is going to be my haul from the Barnes & Noble biannual 50% off Criterion sale, and then the third video is going to have all of my pickups from the Kino Lorber June Swoon sale. Be sure to check out the description of this video for links to buy all of the Blu-rays I'm going to be talking about. They're affiliate links, and I earn a small commission if you buy anything using them, so I'd really appreciate it if you would use them. Alright, so let's jump into these Blu-rays. First up here is 48 Hours. So this is a movie that I have seen. I enjoy it. I actually have an older version of the Blu-ray here. Paramount Presents finally just released this kind of updated 4K scan and lots of extra special features and a nice slipcover. So I kind of decided to go with this one and upgrade the version that I already have. But this is a movie that I've enjoyed since I was a kid. I probably watched this when I was too young. But it's from 1982, stars Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy in this kind of, it's sort of like a buddy cop movie, but it's not, because they're not buddies, and Eddie Murphy does not play a cop. He plays a convict who's kind of out on this 48-hour release to help Nick Nolte's character with kind of an investigation. And so it's a funny movie, but it's also very, I don't know, it's kind of mean-spirited, but I don't know, it's one that I've seen a lot over the years and one that I always kind of enjoy. I always like Eddie Murphy's character and Reggie Hammond, and so wanted to pick up this Paramount Presents version of the movie. Speaking of Paramount Presents, we've got another Paramount Presents release here and another 48 Hours. Literally. It's called Another 48 Hours, so this is the sequel to 48 Hours, unsurprisingly. It came out a few years later, I think like 8 years later, so this is 1990, again starring Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy, and this is one that I haven't seen in such a long time. I might not have even ever seen it in its entirety. Around the same time I first saw the original 48 Hours, I saw this one, so I was pretty young, and so I don't really remember too much of it other than it's kind of similar in the premise that they're out together again. I think Reggie Hammond, rather than being out on like a 48-hour sort of release, he's getting out of jail, and so now he's kind of helping out Nick Nolte's character again. You know, I'm a completionist, and when I saw that not only was 48 Hours on Paramount Presents, but Another 48 Hours was, I knew I had to get it. Next up, we've got A Quiet Place Part 2. So this is from this year, 2021, the sequel, obviously, to A Quiet Place. This is a nice steelbook. So this has 4K and Blu-ray in it. I also have the steelbook for the first A Quiet Place, so I had to keep that trend going. But this is a movie I really enjoyed quite a bit. It's potentially like my favorite movie of the year so far. Another one directed by John Krasinski, just like the first one, but he still has a slight role in it, but mostly focusing on the Abbott family after the events of the first movie, and so now they're kind of on the move, and they're not just staying at the farm, and so this one kind of expands the world of A Quiet Place while also still delivering some of the great things about the first movie. Obviously, the sound design is impeccable again. So I'm really excited to rewatch this one and to dig into some of the special features. And so this is one I enjoy quite a bit. I do have a review for this movie from earlier in the year, if you're interested in checking out my more in-depth thoughts on this one. Next up, we've got Another Thin Man. So this is the third film in the Thin Man movie series. There's 6 of them total. So there's The Thin Man, and then After the Thin Man, which came out before this one. And Warner Archive Collection has been putting out these films, and It seems like they're gonna maybe put out the whole series, so that's cool. I already have the first two, and so when I saw that this one was getting a release as well, wanted to grab it. I actually haven't seen this one though. I've seen the first two, but I hadn't seen any of the other Thin Man films after that. So this is William Powell and Myrna Loy as Nick and Nora, and so they're kind of this investigative pair. They kind of solve these little mysteries, and it's they're funny movies, but cool, and they're old. This is from 39, I think, and so really excited to see some more of the Thin Man series. Next up, we've got Assault on Precinct 13. So this is the original film. This is the 1976 John Carpenter version. I also have the remake as well, but I didn't have this one on Blu-ray for some reason, so I had to rectify that. I have seen this movie before, and I really enjoy this one, actually. This is one of my favorite John Carpenter movies, I think. And so this one's like a very action-packed, surprisingly kind of brutal at times movie. Very much in line with, obviously, the general topic's a little different, but the style of this movie is very much in line with something like Night of the Living Dead. So there's no zombies in this. Instead, it's kind of these criminals, sort of marauders who are laying siege to a police precinct that's in the process of shutting down. So it kind of just has like a skeleton crew. There's very few people there. And so it's a really good movie. So definitely one I would recommend if you haven't seen it. And the cool thing about this, right, because it's a collector's edition, so it's Scream Factory. I wasn't sure if it was Scream or Shout. But it has reversible artwork. So that's one of the cool things about most of these collector's editions. I could flip it around and use the original art, but I kind of like their Scream Factory version. So I'm leaving it as that for now, at least. But excited to finally have this one on Blu-ray. Next up, we've got Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar. So this movie came out this year, and it's a bizarre one. But it's I don't know. It's a movie that I saw and I enjoyed, but like there were parts of it that were just so ridiculous and so dumb. But I think it's one that like with rewatches, it's gonna, I don't know, I think it's gonna grow on me even more. And there's gonna be certain gags and certain bits and jokes that are just extremely funny to me, even though some of the other stuff is kind of like, eh. But I saw this earlier in the year. I did a review for this one as well. And it's weird, it kind of has this anachronistic feel to it. That's like, it's set in modern times, but Barb and Star are very like 80s-ish, 80s like Midwest. And so it's just kind of weird, but it's a fun movie. And it was pretty cheap for whatever reason, and so I decided to pick it up. Alright, so next up we've got The Black Cauldron. So this is a Disney movie. It's one of the Disney animated feature films, but it's a very maligned one. This is kind of credited as being, if not the movie, one of the movies of the so-called Dark Age or Dark Era of Disney, where they just were not doing very well. And so this, I'm curious, because I haven't seen this in such a long time. I saw it when I was really young. This might be another one, like another 48 Hours, where I might have only seen bits and pieces of it over the years when I was young, and that I may not have actually seen this in its entirety. So I'm really curious to kind of see what it's like now. And you can see it's a Disney Movie Club exclusive Blu-ray, so this is one that was not going to be getting like a normal, like vault release, but I was able to snag the Disney Movie Club version. Next up, we've got Black Swan. And so this is a 2010 movie directed by Darren Aronofsky, and I have no excuse, but I have not seen this one yet. It's been one of those films that like people have talked about and raved about, and it's been on lists, and I've had it on my own watch list for a long time, for 11 years now, and for some reason I haven't gotten around to it. So it's Natalie Portman. I know there's some ballet stuff. It's supposed to be a wild movie. It's supposed to be really good. I don't know, I'm hopeful, but I'm not the biggest Aronofsky fan. I tend to not really enjoy his movies all that much, so I'm hoping this is an exception to that usual trend for me, but we will see. Next up, we've got The Bridge on the River Kwai. So this is a collector's edition. It's got all sorts of stuff. It's a digibook, and it has obviously the digibook stuff, but then it's also got poster art and all sorts of things in here. And so Bridge on the River Kwai is a film that I have seen quite a few times, and one that I really enjoy. And one that I don't know why I didn't have the Blu-ray before now, but I saw it was on sale, and I was like, I don't think I have that. And I had to double check. I was looking on Blu-ray.com, and I'm like, man, I actually don't have this one. So this is 1957, directed by David Lean, who did all sorts of movies, including Lawrence of Arabia. But this is one of my favorite David Lean movies. You know, he also did Brief Encounters, Blithe Spirit, stuff like that. So those are ones I really enjoy too. But this one's kind of cool. You know, it's got Alec Guinness, William Holden, and so it's sort of this World War II prisoner of war movie, and it's a very interesting film. There's a lot to it, and it's one that, like, when you read the little blurb about it, it kind of, you're like, I guess that's probably okay. But then when you watch it, you're like, holy crap, this is like a lot more. There's a lot more to it than just what the plot would indicate. So I'm glad I finally picked this one up. I can't wait to rewatch it again. Next up, we've got The Dead Zone. So this is another Scream Factory. Sorry, I keep saying that. Scream, because it's horror. Another Scream Factory release. Slipcover. It's still in plastic, so I can't show you. And I'm sure it has reversible art, because the collector's editions always do. But this is The Dead Zone, Stephen King book and film. And so this stars Christopher Walken as Johnny, this guy who's in a car accident. He's in a coma for like 5 years, and he wakes up, right, and his life is like, everybody's moved on, but he now has this kind of power and this, or ability to not only kind of see the future, but also sense things about people's past when he touches them or touches something of theirs. And so it's this kind of sci-fi thing that turns into this sort of political thriller. So it's kind of an interesting one. I really enjoy the book. The movie, I don't like this movie as much as I think most people do, but I still enjoy it. This is one that I reviewed back last October during 13 Nights of Halloween when I was doing my Stephen King review series, and there was one I was complaining about how I had to have the DVD because there was no standalone Blu-ray for it yet. So now we have the standalone Blu-ray, and I'm glad that I have it. Next up, we've got Fatale. And so this movie came out this year, earlier this year, 2021, and it's okay. It was one that I got a screener for, and it's, you know, I think I liked it a little bit more than most people did. This doesn't have very good ratings in general, but it's kind of this thriller sort of thing. It's a kind of messy movie, and, you know, character motivations are very unclear for some of it, but it's not a bad movie. Got Hilary Swank. I think she does pretty good in this role. Michael Ealy as well. And so this was super cheap on Prime Day, I think. And so I was like, why not? Might as well pick it up. Next up, another one that was cheap on Prime Day, and that's 5 Feet Apart. And so this movie came out a few years ago, 2019, stars Haley Lou Richardson and Cole Sprouse. Had to make sure it wasn't Dylan. So Cole Sprouse, and basically it's one of those movies where it's sick teenagers, right? There's a ton of these types of movies, but these guys have cystic fibrosis. And so they have like a type that they could, you know, they can't be around each other because they could pass on bacteria to each other, but they have to stay in the hospital. And so the idea is that they're supposed to stay 6 feet apart, but then they take back a foot, right? And it's sort of this romance, but just, I don't know, it's okay. It's one of those movies that, again, you kind of look at it and you're like, oh yeah, another one of these. And then that's what I thought when I first saw, like, the name and like the description, and then I watched it and I was like, it's not bad, like it's okay. And so I saw that it was cheap on Blu-ray and I was like, I might as well pick it up. Next up, we've got Godzilla vs. Kong. And so we got the nice Best Buy exclusive steelbook here, so the 4K. Really excited to check out the special features on this and see it in 4K, because when I saw a digital screener, so it wasn't the best quality. But this is the fourth film of the Monsterverse, and kind of the big fight, right? Obviously, Godzilla versus Kong. Team Kong here, got the shirt on. I don't care what you say. I'm still Team Kong. I still say he was the hero here, right? And so this came out earlier this year in March. I've got a review for it, as well as the entirety of the Monsterverse and a rankography of the Monsterverse. So if you're interested in any of the Monsterverse stuff, you can check those videos out. Next up, we've got Guns Akimbo. So this movie came out last year, at the beginning of last year, I think. Stars Daniel Radcliffe in a very not Harry Potter role. And it's one that I have not seen, but it's one of those films that I remember when it was coming out and sort of all the, deal with it. And there was the meme or the gif of Daniel Radcliffe with the gun and the bathrobe and stuff. And so basically, this seems kind of similar to the movie Nerve, where basically he gets kind of sucked into, or like unintentionally or unwillingly recruited into this like live stream thing, but it's like a live stream death match. And so this also gets Samara Weaving in it. So I don't know, I'm curious to see what this one's like, because I'd heard, very vague things, but a lot of very vague things about it. So I'm excited to check it out. Next up, we've got Happy Death Day to You. So this is the second of the Happy Death Day franchise, the sequel to the 2017 film. So this came out a few years ago, 2019. And I really enjoy this franchise. I think it's fun. The first one, kind of horror Groundhog Day. This one has that similar premise again, but this one's a little more sci-fi, I think, than horror. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I still prefer the first film, but I enjoy this one too. And I realized that I didn't have it on Blu-ray, and so had to correct that. Next up, we've got Head of State. So this is a film that I never thought was going to be coming out on a Blu-ray. There's some movies that you have on DVD and you're just like, there's never going to be an upgrade for this. But there is now, so I can replace that DVD over there. So this came out in 2003, stars Chris Rock. It's got Bernie Mac in it. This was actually Chris Rock's directorial debut, I believe, as well. And basically he stars, or his role is this guy who is running for president. He's kind of this last minute candidate, and he runs a very unconventional campaign, and so it's just kind of this funny comedy, goofy, wild thing. I haven't seen it in a long time. Like, I saw it in theaters, and I probably watched the DVD like one time not too long after that, so it's been 15 years, 16 years since I last saw this, so to be honest, I don't remember too much of it, but I do remember a scene where he's trying to, like, pump people up, and he's like, the roof is on fire, right? And, like, all the people are like, what? The roof's on fire! Ah! They're all like, and he's like, no, it's... Anyway, that's my big memory from this movie, so we'll see how much more of this I actually remember when I watch it. Next up, we've got Herbie Fully Loaded. So we got another Disney Movie Club exclusive here. This one's kind of a deep cut, not too old, 2005. I saw this in theaters. So it's a Herbie movie, right? The Love Bug. But this is Lindsay Lohan as this girl who wants to be a NASCAR driver. Like, she's in a family of racers, and her family doesn't want her to do it or whatever, and then, like, Herbie comes along, and then she's a racer. It's one that I'm replacing a DVD of, as is often the case with these Disney Movie Club exclusive blues. So I haven't seen it in a long time. I wasn't, like, completely enamored with it even back then, so I don't have super high hopes, but I'm glad that I have it on Blu-ray, now that a Blu-ray exists. Okay, so next up we've got House of Wax. So this is the 2005 remake of House of Wax, another Shout Factory, Scream Factory release. And so we got the slipcover. I still have the plastic on this, so I can't show you the reversible art, but another collector's edition here. And this was a movie, I saw it in theaters. I actually have this on Blu-ray as well, but I had a kind of double feature Blu-ray with this and 13 Ghosts. And 13 Ghosts got a collector's edition not too long ago, last year sometime, that I picked up. But then I was like stuck with a duplicate of that because I still wanted to have House of Wax. So now they released House of Wax, so I can have that. I can get rid of that that double feature and actually put these correctly in alphabetical order instead of having House of Wax down in the T's. But anyway, this one, it's okay. It's definitely a decent remake. You know, the original Vincent Price one's kind of, it's okay. This one, it's got some gruesome gore, like not gruesome, but it's got some moments that will make you squirm, especially involving wax and peeling wax off faces. I remember seeing that in theaters and be like, oh. And so, haven't seen this in a little while, probably 7 or 8 years probably. So I'm curious to check it out, see if it holds up, in spite of the fact that Paris Hilton's in it. So now we've got Jojo Rabbit. I don't know why I didn't pick this up last year. I guess it just didn't drop down cheap enough, but it was very cheap a month or so ago, and so I grabbed it finally. So this is from 2019. I really enjoyed this movie. I do have a review of this up, and this is just it's funny, but it's also very sweet and heartwarming. Like, you don't usually think of, like, satires as, like, really funny and also heartwarming, but somehow this is. And so it's got some really good stuff. Roman Griffin Davis, as Jojo. Like, I can't wait to see this kid in more movies. Like, he was so good. And Tomasa McKenzie, also, she's gonna be in some more. She's in, Last Night in Soho, I believe. Or am I making that up? I might be making that up. But she was just in Old. And so I'm really looking forward to rewatching this because I actually have only seen it the one time in theaters. And I really enjoyed it, so I can't wait to rewatch it. So next up, we've got another Disney Movie Club exclusive, and that is The Kid from 2000. So this is another one I did not expect to come out on Blu-ray, so it's another DVD replacement for me. And this stars Bruce Willis and Spencer Breslin. And Bruce Willis plays this guy who's kind of, you know, he's so serious, he's put everything from his childhood out of his mind, right? He's this serious, like, adult, and he comes across this kid who, like, kind of won't leave him alone, and he's very familiar, and he's reminding him, like, of somebody, until he realizes the kid is actually him, just at 8 years old. And so it's kind of this interesting fantasy movie, because he doesn't know if he's crazy, he doesn't know if the kid's actually there, or if the kid isn't there, and it's this, it's kind of this nice movie, and it's one I haven't seen in a long time either, so I'm looking forward to rewatching it. So next up, we've got The Maltese Falcon. So this is kind of a classic noir film from 1941, directed by John Huston, stars Humphrey Bogart and Mary Astor, and it's this very kind of hard-boiled movie that has, like, the ultimate MacGuffin, and it's a very interesting one, and this is a movie I've seen a number of times. I saw this back in, I think the first time I saw it was in a film class in high school, but I may have seen it before that. But it's a good one, and it's another one that I don't know why I didn't have before. And this one's kind of interesting, this edition, because it's got some special features, and most of them are kind of generic. You know, they're just like, oh, Humphrey Bogart, a life, you know. But there's one that it's basically a blooper reel from 1941 films, and it's really entertaining. Like, I was, like, almost laughing out loud watching it, seeing just the phrases that they say, like, when they mess up. Like, they said very different things back in 1941 than what we say today when we mess something up. And so that, you know, I like the movie, but the blooper reel was a highlight as well for me. So now we've got Minari. So this came out earlier this year, so it's a 2021 film, directed by Lee Isaac Chung, and this was, close. It was nominated for Best Picture at least, won quite a few things at the Oscars, including Best Supporting Actress, which was one of my favorite wins for this film. And so it's a very good movie. Like, this was one that I was a little hesitant about. The trailer didn't really do anything for me, and then there was a lot of hype for it, but I really enjoyed it. It's a nice family story, kind of family drama, but just slice of life kind of deal, kind of an immigrant story, but not really, because it's also just a very American dream kind of story, and so I enjoyed this one, and so I'm very curious to check out the special features on this, and revisit. Next up, we've got another Disney Movie Club exclusive, and that's The Pacifier. So this is a movie, I gotta say, I'm surprised never had a release before now. And I don't know why Disney Movie Club is the one that ended up picking it up and releasing it, but I feel like this should have gotten a regular release. I think people would have bought it, but anyway, The Pacifier, Vin Diesel in his kind of interim between the Fast and Furious, the fourth one, and so he plays this Navy SEAL guy who's like this, big star military guy, and he gets a mission to protect this family and protect this house, and he's kind of stuck sort of babysitting the kids, and so it's one of those movies that you know how it's going to go. He's going to be this tough guy, and that the kids are going to be like messing with him, and then that there's going to be this sweet, nice connection and all that, right? But I don't know, like, it's fun, even though it's super predictable and exactly what you expect it to be, and exactly the type of interactions you would expect between Vin Diesel and kids and a baby, right? Like, it's stupidly entertaining, and it's one that I have on DVD, but it also seems to be on TV a lot, so I actually rewatched this not too long ago, and still enjoyed it, and so glad to have it on Blu-ray and be able to replace the DVD copy. Speaking of replacing DVD copies, we've got Rat Race. So this is a wild movie. This came out in 2001. I remember seeing it in theaters. And it's this wacky ensemble movie. There's so many people. I mean, like, Rowan Atkinson, John Cleese, Whoopi Goldberg, Cuba Gooding Jr., Seth Green, John Lovitz, Brecklin Mayer, Amy Smart. Like, so many people in this movie. Kathy Bates is in this, and like, oh, you should have bought a squirrel. Like, it's so good. But it's such a ridiculous movie. It's kind of a remake, or at least inspired by, It's a Mad World, which is an older film that has this very similar premise of these people kind of trying to win a contest and race each other to win. And so it's a weird one, but I haven't seen it in a long time, actually, so I'm happy I get to replace the DVD. Then we've got Raya and the Last Dragon. So this is the Best Buy Steelbook, so this is the 4K and Blu-ray combo. I really like the Steelbook art of this one. Usually with Disney, I tend to go with the collector's edition, the ones with the slipcovers, but I really like the art of the Steelbook here, so I decided to go Steel. But I really enjoyed this movie. It came out earlier this year, so it's a 2021. I have a review for it up if you're interested in seeing my in-depth thoughts on it. But I was really impressed. Like, the trailers looked okay, but I had such a good time with this. The animation was great. The fight choreography was awesome. It's a really fun kind of action-adventure movie. It's not a musical, so that's somewhat rare in Disney animated movies, but I had a really good time with it. Raya's probably one of my favorite characters in a Disney movie in quite a while, and she's not at Mulan levels for me, but she's close. She's approaching kind of maybe Mulan levels, and so glad to finally get this so I can rewatch it in better quality, because it's another one that I saw a screener of, so I can't wait to watch the 4K. Speaking of 4K, we've got Spiral. So this is the 9th movie in the Saw franchise. and it's kind of a unique one among the franchise because it's sort of a detective story rather than just the straight kind of horror, gore kind of movie. It still has some of that for sure, but this takes more of a police procedural angle with Chris Rock. And so a little different than Head of State from earlier, but I enjoyed this one. I saw it in theaters, and I do have a review for it up, but I like this one, and so I got the Steelbook, and it's in plastic still, so you can't really tell, but it's got a clear plastic slipcover over the Steelbook, so that's kind of unique, but that's actually something that they did with quite a few of the Saw movies in the past, so I can't remember exactly which one, Saw 6, Saw 7, a couple of the Saw films that I have had actual plastic slipcovers. Maybe it was over the DVDs back in the DVD day, because I think I have a Saw box set now, so it must have been the DVDs, but they used to have clear plastic slipcovers over the movie, which was kind of weird, and I haven't seen that too often since, so I don't know if they're just continuing a trend or what the deal is, but I think it looks pretty cool, and I'm excited to rewatch it. Next we've got another film that is a DVD replacement for me, and that's The Stepford Wives. This is the remake of The Stepford Wives, so this is the 2004 kind of weird dark comedy version of The Stepford Wives, starring Nicole Kidman. And so this is a movie that I saw in theaters before I ever saw the original. I didn't know that this was a remake when I saw it in theaters. And so it wasn't until after that I watched the original and I'm like, wow, it's, the premise is there, but it's a very different kind of movie because, like I said, this takes a much more comedic route, but not just like slapstick. It's kind of this dark comedy. But I haven't seen this in forever. Like, I might not have even ever watched the DVD copy that I have. So I might have only ever seen this in theater. And that was in 2004. And so it's been a little while. And so I'm curious to rewatch it. And again, excited to replace the DVD copy. And then, speaking of DVD replacements, we've got The Tuxedo. So this was 2002. This was a Jackie Chan movie that I really enjoyed at the time. I saw this in theater, and I know I definitely watched my DVD copy a few times of this one. And it's this silly kind of spy movie. Basically, Jackie Chan is like, he's like a driver. He's like a chauffeur. And he puts on I can't remember the exact scenario, but for some reason he has to put on the suit that somebody gives him. And it's like a super suit, so it's like a super spy suit, or tuxedo, I guess, not even a suit, obviously, a tuxedo. And it gives him like all these, he can now fight and like do all the classic Jackie Chan stuff, and he's like now this super spy, and everybody thinks he's the spy, even though he's just the chauffeur. And so it was kind of a fun action comedy, and one that I haven't seen in a long time either, so I'm looking forward to rewatching this one. So that's it for the movies, but I do have a TV show here, and so that's Parks and Recreation. So Parks and Rec, I really enjoy this show, and so they released the whole series on Blu-ray now, so I've got seasons 1 through 7, and this, I don't know why I like this one as much as I do, because generally these kind of mockumentary style shows I'm not huge on, like The Office, I'm kind of but for whatever reason, Parks and Rec really struck me. Maybe it's because of the, just the setting, right, like a Parks and Rec department, like that's kind of my deal, my career sort of similar with like wildlife ecology and state government and stuff, and so having this show was just, I don't know, there was something about it. I find it very funny. I love the characters, or at least most of the characters, and kind of the character dynamics. You got Leslie Knope, you got Ron Swanson, you've got like all of these great combinations of characters, and Little Sebastian. We gotta give it up for Little Sebastian. And so I'm happy to have this because, I used to watch it on Netflix, actually when it was airing. I don't think I ever watched a show when it premiered, I would always wait 6 months when it was on Netflix, and then I watch them. But I've also watched a ton of reruns on TV, so happy to have this one now, so I can just kind of watch it whenever I want, and maybe actually go through and do the whole series again at some point. Alright, so that was part 1 of my summer 2021 Blu-ray haul. A bit of a mix, quite a few that I have seen, and a number that I haven't yet. But be sure to check back for part 2 of this haul next week when I talk about my Criterion pickups, and then part 3 after that for my Kino Lorber grabs. Again, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying any of the Blu-rays I showed you today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're market for any of these movies. Also, I want to know, have you bought any Blu-rays lately? Let me know your thoughts and all your Blu-ray pickups in the comments below. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this haul video, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this, as well as movie reviews. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.